Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Janet Harden Councilman. We'll be discussing her book, Petey the Penguin in the Electric Igloo, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million. Also, if you guys want to get everything that Janet has to offer, do yourself a favor. Go directly to her website, janetcouncilmanbooks.com. There, not only will you be able to find this title, you'll also be able to find all of the other titles that Janet has written as well, and you'll also be able to purchase them directly through this site also. So one last time, that's janetcouncilmanbooks.com. And I will say, Janet was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business. You are Link Print and Media Publisher. If you have a book that you'd like moved, well, move it through UR Link. You can find them at urlinkpublishing.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Janet here on the line with us, because the book we're focusing on today, Petey the Penguin in the Electric Igloo, is such a fun and exciting ride for all of us to take. Okay, now it's a children's book, so it's specifically geared for a certain age group. But what makes this book so profound and so amazing is, again, it's a fun and exciting ride, but it's going to make education fun. And that really is what Janet sets out to do on all of her books, right? Is really focusing and emphasizing the importance of education, but at the same time, making sure that everybody is having fun while learning. And that is such a great tool to be utilized, right? And listen, Janet is the expert on the matter. So without further ado, let's bring her here on the line with us. Janet, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I am doing well, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Well, listen, the pleasure is all ours, okay? We're very much looking forward to this. We all know that, listen, children, of course, we know the cliche, children are the future, and they absolutely are. But even more important than that, right now, given what we're all going through with this pandemic, a lot of kids are at home, right? So the education in the traditional sense has kind of stopped, or at least been altered, rather, in a way. But having a book of this magnitude to really re-implement the education and the importance of having fun while doing so is so important, and we're really looking forward to it. Now, Janet, before we jump into the book, let's hold off slightly, okay? Tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself.
All right. I am a commercial artist, and I graduated from Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. And then I became a teacher assistant at South Graham Elementary, and I worked with autistic children, and that is where I got the initial ambition to write my own children's books. And so far, I have written 6 books, all for children, and I'm working on my latest book through URL Inc. Print and Media. And I am retired, and I also make cards.
Fantastic.
So that is my background.
There you go. Well, listen, you spent your time, as you stated in your background, you spent some time in education, right? As a teacher's aide.
Years.
Wonderful. So you know a thing or two about education.
Yes, that was wonderful. Wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Fantastic.
It was a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I haven't spent too much time teaching. I taught for about 4 years. My significant other, she's been teaching high school now for about 15 years. So I can be the first to attest to the challenges that come along with teaching. But listen, when you finally connect with your students and they grasp the lesson that you're teaching them, listen, there's really no better feeling in the world, right? It's such a strong sense of accomplishment and appreciation when the children do latch on to the learning lesson that you're providing. So, Janet, let's jump right in, okay? Petey the Penguin in the Electric Igloo. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, I have a brother named Pete. So one day I asked him, I said, I want to write a story about a penguin. And I said, I want to use your name because I always called him Petey when he was young, but now I call him Pete, of course. And so he said, that's fine. He said, let me read it and see what you have to say. So Petey was named after my brother. And Petey is a very curious penguin that loves to read about traveling and make-believe, and he wants to go to the M.R. Brisk Library to check out books on adventures and traveling. And so he goes, after he does his chores, his mom lets him dress up for the cold weather, and he heads out, and she tells him, now, Petey, you have to be home before dark because it gets dark earlier during these winter months. Mm-hmm. So he takes off, and as a little boy, he gets very distracted, and he winds up in the village of Slipperyville. And he walks and walks and walks and becomes very tired and hungry. And in the village are all these igloos with multiple Christmas lights, holiday lights, all over the igloos. So he comes upon this one igloo with the most lights on it. And he's a little hesitant, but he knocks on the door. And the penguin that answers the door, is an uncle of his, but he doesn't know this. And so he invites him in and feeds him and lets him spend the night and notifies his parents that he's safe. And the next day they go back to Petey's home. But the lesson is taught here in this story is to make sure that you mind your parents and just do as they tell you do, and you won't get into any trouble.
Mm-hmm. Listen, great lessons there. I wish somebody would have really impressed that to me. When I was a little bit younger, there were a few times I found myself getting into a little bit of trouble by not listening to what my parents were teaching. You know, Janet, thank you so much for sharing. Now, let's go into inspiration, okay? Now, of course, you briefly started to go into what inspired this particular narrative, and thank you so much for that. Listen, if there's more to really what inspired this particular story, we'd love to hear it. But even further than that, what inspired, I mean, again, you come from a background of education, and you've now switched and have written 6 books, right? And getting ready to embark upon the 7th. What inspired you to make that switch and become a writer?
Well, I just love books. I have always loved books. And as a child, my mother read to me and Dad read to me. And I just love animals so much. I've had many pets over the years. And so I would pick an animal that I liked, and then I would come up with the name. And since I love penguins, it's one of my things, my brother's name just fit in with it. So
absolutely,
that's how I got started on this book. And then I would go into the title. I would work out a very unusual title, which you wouldn't think would be there, like the lights on an igloo. Who would think that? So I would just do that, and then I would start writing the story, and it just seemed to come to me, although I wrote and rewrote and edited, and that's the order in which I work. First the title, first the animal, and then the title, and then the story. And I just was inspired by my brother's name. I just thought that was unusual.
Absolutely. Well, listen, in addition to that, quick side note from myself, I appreciate the alliteration, right? Petey the Penguin. And then your other book that we're going to touch up on briefly in a little bit is Rocky Raccoon, right? And his Raiders versus the Prowlers. That alliteration is fantastic. It really helps. And that in and of itself is an education lesson, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, the first book I wrote was Rocky the Respectful Raccoon and his red sunglasses. And I also like raccoons. People don't think much of that animal, but I've always thought they were very unusual. Mm-hmm. And so I just started the same routine. I just came up with an idea, came up with an animal, and I thought, well, what would make this animal more unusual? And so I put red glasses on him, red sunglasses. And it's a characteristic trait. I have 6 books, and the first one was respectful, the second responsible, third one is caring, the fourth one is fairness, and the fifth one is trustworthy, and the last one is citizenship. So I've written the first 4, and they're printed and published, and I've done all the artwork for them. I've written the last 2. I'm still working on the artwork. So it's a process.
Absolutely.
So that will be what I will be working on in the near future after I get the 7th book out, Prizzy the Piglet Who Dislikes Mud.
Again, here on the line with Janet Harden Councilman. We're discussing her book, Petey the Penguin and the Electric Igloo, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or at her personal website, janetcouncilmanbooks.com. You know, Janet, again, this has all been fantastic so far. Next question that I'd really love to go into is, listen, we know what the book entails. We know why it was important to you and really what inspired you to embark upon this journey. Now, why do you feel it was so important for you to make sure that that you put this out and really put this out for the public to partake in, and then also specifically for children? I mean, all of your books, of course, as you've stated, they all have very specific messages that they're teaching. Why was it important for you to do that?
Because I think our kids today need all the encouragement and all the teaching in how to become better students, better adults, and set examples for all the other students, children, and grandchildren. I think it's just very important that they know right from wrong and have fun at the same time. Sometimes maybe they don't even know that they're learning, but they're learning through these books. So they're all good books, and they do teach good traits.
Fantastic. You know, and I can definitely attest, you know, thinking back on, and it seems like it was an eternity ago now that I was in school, but, you know, thinking back on my years of schooling and the years that I spent in education, the teachers that I always gravitated towards and the lessons that I always learned, the quickest and did the best in, were the ones that I actually found myself having fun while learning it, right? You know, I think that's
very important.
Of course.
I mean, that's what makes books fun, is just enjoying it and laughing.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that is something that is missed a lot of times, right? Often when we address education, when we address learning, there's usually a stigma that it's going to be boring, right? That it's not going to be fun. And guys, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Education and learning can be fun.
Another book that is fun is Sammy the Shark and the Return of the Lost Gift. And I lived on the coast with my husband before he passed away. And I just loved the ocean. So I had to write something about underwater. And that's how I came up with Sammy the Shark and the Return of the Lost Gift. And it teaches a lot of things in that book too. Being kind and being a good friend and returning something that is lost instead of keeping it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you know, as we continue on, Janet, one question that I'd love to ask that I'm really just curious about. Listen, these books, just from hearing you discuss them, seem so fun. I'm having fun just talking to you about them. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing either this book, Petey the Penguin, or really a highlight in just writing all of your books in general?
Well, I was just excited to take the challenge to be able to create a children's book. And I was really impressed with my father's brother, John Harden, who was in advertising, and he wrote 2 books, Tar Heel Ghost Stories. And it was just so interesting. I told my mother one day, I said, I am going to write a children's book. I think that's what I really want to do. And I'd started later in life, and my first book came out in 2009 after many, many drafts of writing and then doing the illustrations. But it has been a journey, and it has been a fun journey, and I've learned a lot. I know what kids love. They love animals of any kind. And so I think all the children will really enjoy these books that I've written.
Fantastic. And I'm sure they will, Janet. Listen, as we tie up this fantastic interview, we talked about this main book. We've addressed a number of your other ones and gone into that as well. So, guys, you know that there is a plethora of books out there for you to go and pick up by Janet. Be on the lookout because there's going to be more on the way. Janet, I love having this platform, being an artist myself, and I'm in a different medium, but I love having this platform to be able to pay it forward and help out other artists. Now, again, you've written 6 books, are embarking upon your 7th very, very shortly. You know the game probably better than most. What would you say, what advice could you give a new writer, somebody just starting out and getting ready to embark upon a journey of this magnitude?
I would say write from the heart. Put yourself into the book. Create a good lesson. It may take you a while, but don't give up. Keep pursuing your challenge, and your goals will come true.
There you have it. There you have it. Guys, listen, we started off by talking about all of her fantastic books, which are educational for children. But then we capped off the interview with a little bit of an education for some adults out there as well. What a fantastic interview that we've comprised. Guys, listen, what more can we say? You know what you got to do. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or to her personal website directly, janetcouncilmanbooks.com, and pick up your copy of Petey the Penguin in the Electric Igloo. You surely will not be disappointed. Janet, this has been an absolute delight and such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji, so much. I have enjoyed every minute, and you're a wonderful speaker.